Alrighty, Cowboy and Cowgirl Nation, the time has arrived. We are back in the saddle again. Right around the corner, we're going to bring in our first guest ever, and I'm beyond elated. I'm beyond excited. So let's just get this thing rocking and rolling, everybody.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. I am very blessed today to be joined by the man himself, Stephon Johnson Sr. Today, we are partially brought to you by Omaha Steaks, your butcher since 1917. Stephon Johnson, how are you doing, sir?
Man, Cody, I'm good, man. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be able to be here and chop it up with you, man. I'm excited. Let's get it.
Well, we'll jump right off into it. I'm going to go ahead and ask what all Cowboy fans have been wondering for an entire year now. Why Boogie?
You mean why the name or why Oklahoma State?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Why the name?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's simple. When he was a baby, man, he would dance around the house like crazy. Like, I mean, there was not a moment, where music came on and he wouldn't just stop what he was doing with his pamper on and boogie. So,
I did.
His mom just kind of coined the term. And the funny thing is, I messed it up. It's my fault because that name was never supposed to come outside of the house. But it kind of, became his name in the house every day. And me, it sounded weird if saying my own name. Like if he's doing something and it's like Stephon, I'm like, what? Like I'm talking to myself. So, outside of the house, I just started calling him, Boogie, because I didn't want to say my own name and it stuck. So it's been his name since he was 1. So he's 18 years with that name.
So our first conversation together, I sent you a message and basically, thank you for you and Mama Bear allowing your son to bless us with his time thus far in Stillwater, Oklahoma. But the thing that caught me was his footwork and his route running ability to be able to push up on the DB and get the DB to commit before he made his moves. That is a very, very upperclassman style of running. So I wanted to ask you, when did it really start for him in his development? The day you saw, okay, I'm going to push this because I see potential greatness here.
Man, I would honestly say very early in the sense of the speed was the first thing that I saw. He would be mimicking him and my daughter when I would do, train older kids that were in high school when he was 3 and 4. Him and my daughter would take the cones and kind of mimic, what I would do. And I just kind of watched, as I was moving around like, okay, that looks pretty good. So, of course, being a track coach, I put him in the 50 at a very early age. It's called a munchkin race, right? You know that.
Yeah.
And the first time I put him in the munchkin race, he won, and I was like, oh, okay, we might have something. So he would, at track practice, he would come in, kind of run around a little bit. I didn't force him to practice until he was like really intrigued by it, until probably the age of 5. He would just come out, run around. He'd jump on the track, run with the kids, and then he'd walk off and go play. And so I just let him, get exercise. And then you had the munchkin race maybe 4 or 5 times a season, and anytime it would come up, I just throw him out there. And he would win again and win again, and if not win, he would get very close, So
in the state of Texas,
where in Houston, nonetheless, where Houston and Dallas got, and I'm talking, kids now that are amazingly fast, so it just kind of, blossomed from that. And then we started flag football at 4. And he really took a liking to it. Fast forward, I didn't push him to do tackle until he was 7, because I wanted him to understand the game of football. Right? We did flag football up until 7, because we would, sit on the blackboard teaching X's and O's, go outside. I had to, paint stuff on the ground. Here's your holes. You got to learn your hole, because I wanted him to be able to play running back, linebacker. So I want him to understand where the holes were and be able to see it before slow the game down. I would always
so cool.
Go back to, the matrix, right? Mm-hmm. So we would have fun with it. I would just, paint the holes, and then we would really do the funniest thing about it is, honestly, my daughter wanted her growing up, she wanted to play tackle football. So I actually used her, and I told you the story of Tony Brown giving all of his football equipment, to Boogie, passing it down to him. So
for those who don't know, Tony Brown went to Bama and then went to the league.
Mm-hmm. He's still playing right now. Hell of a guy. So I used my daughter to actually tackle him, and a lot of the other kids that came with him in the wintertime, and they had a ball. I mean, she used to she would murder him. And it was fun for her, because that was kind of her way of, letting off that football steam.
And she's still playing, right? Some flag stuff.
Yes. So it was, it was fun for them until, one day he kind of hit her and she was like, okay, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to do it no more. And I was like, okay, I think he's ready now, but the athleticism was there very, very early. I think it was because he watched so much I posted a video today on Twitter showing one of the kids that I trained from Beaumont Westbrook, and they would just stand and watch him and watch and watch and watch. And they would try to do it, and they would get frustrated, when they couldn't do the stuff that he could do. And then we started talking about movement, about basketball, because to me, all sports are the same if you know functional movement. If you know how to move, you can go from one sport fluidly to another. If you just have to understand what the body does, right? It's only so much the body can do. So we would go through these scenarios. I would run and say, hey, if my leg went this way, what's going to happen? What are my scenarios? And make him think about it, right? So the older he got, I could see those wheels turning in the game. And I'm like, how did you know to do that? And he was like, I know what they were going to do before they did it, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're learning, and I think now it's so easy for them. The one trick I taught them was watch, if you play basketball, watch your opponent in their warm-ups. Their weaknesses just by them warming up. Same thing in football. If you're a receiver, watch how the DB warms up. You're going to know if he's stiff in the hips, if he stumbles, if he's heavy on his heels. If you watch the warm-ups, you'll know that, and then now, guess what? You try them, you test them. And then when you find that weakness, now you exploit it. So, and then it was just a simple thing of, I wasn't into the fancy stuff. It was more like the Kobe Bryant mentality, do the same thing over and over and over until you mastered it. And then we add another layer and then add another layer. And it got to the point to where the one thing I knew he showed early was he couldn't catch a cold. And this was during his flag years. He couldn't catch. So we started.
He played quarterback.
He played quarterback, running back. I even had him on the line. Like he was a lineman. Like literally, he played every position. Possibly, he would cry like, "Why you got me playing on the line?" I'm like, dude, in order to be a great football player, you have to know what everybody does. And you don't know what you're going to end up being when you get older. So we're going to try every position until you learn every position. He couldn't catch to save his life. So we did a neat trick with raw eggs, and they fell in love with that. If you can catch a raw egg without it breaking, that helps soften your hands up. Then went from there to tennis balls, put our chests on the pole, just little things like that over and over and over. And then as he got older, I even went crazier with it. I would just take a ball and just throw it and say, catch it wherever it is. If you got to catch it with one hand or just bend your body, he'd be like, Dad, the ball. I'm like, dude, it's quarterbacks that's not going to get the ball to you in your chest every single time. So you have to catch it wherever it is, and that's where the catch radius came now. Right. And it got to a point where, once he started playing receiver and was locked on at receiver, then it was, okay, let me go get you some receiver help. Guys that know that position, that played it, that understand that mindset. But the athleticism part came from just the functional movement, running track. And unfortunately, I wanted them to play baseball, but that didn't work out because we were, outside playing catch, and I hit the ball, went up, and it hit him dead in the eye, swole his eye shut, and he didn't want to do baseball no more. So I attribute that to me, unfortunately. But I think he would have been really good at baseball. He did it for 1 year. He did it for one season and hated it, because it was just like, he's like, man, it's just too slow. It's boring, And I was like, okay, well, at least you tried.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it's funny you say that. So I raised my kids, pretty comparable, right? And one thing that they've been doing since they were little bitty was whenever I'd give them snacks, I would make them catch it, like little bags of gummies and donuts and whatnot. Even my daughters, and it's to the point now, right? They're all grown, but I don't even say anything. I just throw whatever it is, and they catch it and go on about their business. And it's so much fun when they have friends over, especially my daughters. Like, why did your dad just throw stuff at you?
Oh, it's fun. It is a lot of fun. And, doing stuff like that, it helps coordination, and it helps that bonding thing. For me, I had to learn to not put so much stress on, being great early. You know what I'm saying? I think one, it burns kids out,
It can, for sure.
If you because you think about the mental side of it, right? If a kid is really good early, especially when it comes to track, kids start winning at an early age. Now you have to train even harder the next year for them to keep winning, right? Mm-hmm. So now you look at winning over and over and over, what that does to you mentally. And then when you lose, because it's going to happen at some point, right? How do I deal with that, mentally? And then the physical part, it's a lot of work. So there has to be a balance in, the work and play and all of that stuff. Because for me, my philosophy is I would rather you be competitive throughout your youth years and get to the point to where when it's time for you to earn a living, meaning scholarship, if you're good enough to go professional, you still have gas left in the tank. But you see so many guys get to college, especially in track, and physically they start tapping out because they've put in so much work to get there. And I'm like, to me, that's worthless because now you can't even earn it. You can't benefit from, your success. You know what I'm saying? By going through that scholarship,
Absolutely.
To me, it's worthless.
Well, and so we're going to jump into some of the 7-on-7 stuff that you do, as well as some other things you have coming down the pipeline. because I really think that in today's recruiting age, some things have obviously changed quite a bit since we were doing it. But at the end of the day, the competitive work ethic thing, to me, that's the most intriguing part of Stephon Johnson Jr.'s journey to Stillwater, Oklahoma. So we're going to jump into a lot of that. But real quick, I do have to say and remind everybody, guys, the holidays are here. Achieve gift-giving greatness when you give the perfect gift of aged, tender, and delicious Omaha Steaks. The steak experts at Omaha have put together special curated gift packages to help you take out the guesswork of the gifting. Go to omahasteaks.com, use the code LOCKEDON, and check out the $30 off we're having right now for your order. Again, go to LOCKEDON or go to omahasteaks.com, use promo code LOCKEDON to get that $30 off. All right, so yes, let's jump into some of the fun stuff, right? In all of the 7-on-7, right? That's something that's been coming down the pipeline for quite some time. I know it started around when I was in high school, and now it's become a major national thing. And it's more than just kids running around with diapers on their heads. It's getting extra work in. It's about those fundamentals. Learning how to drive your slant 3 yards instead of cut it off at 2 yards and not have to do it. How to get in between the linebacker and defensive line depth on a crossing route. And do it in a live scenario at full speed. It's something that's grabbing. It's been gravitating towards this becoming a major asset for not only coaches in recruiting, but these athletes as well. So how did you get into that scene and give us kind of a rundown of how many states you guys kind of cover and the importance of it?
Man, I can go back to my older son, who's, graduated college now, him doing 7-on-7 in high school, just for fun, with his teammates. It wasn't really as competitive back then when he graduated from South Springs in Houston. But 6th grade, Boogie, we were always looking for anything competitive. Where are the best athletes, whether it's track, basketball, wherever we can get extra reps, and 7-on-7 was one of those tools that they loved, because it's kind of, it's glorified football, and just another way for them to run and catch, play defense, talk trash. And it was one of those situations where we had to kind of marry it during track season. So it was a lot of, we would literally leave track meet, go play basketball, and then the next day, 7-on-7, then it kind of came to a point to where I started doing, tournaments in the Houston area, and it just grew from there. I started having partnerships with, other guys, and we started Florida, Oklahoma, Missouri, all over the country. And for us and for me, it's important for 7-on-7 because, one, the way I look at it, if you are a kid that plays 2nd string, 3rd string, and you're not getting any playing time during the season, definitely play 7-on-7 so you can get extra reps. That way, when you go back for spring ball, when you go for the fall, the coach can say, what have you been doing? I can show you, I've gotten extra reps. I've gotten better, right? The downside to it is, a lot of times, like for me, I don't like I would rather they use pure linebackers on every team, but the winning part is I got to use a DB. Yeah, right.
You see a lot of dime and nickel packages. Right?
Absolutely.
Which is not the intended goal.
Absolutely. That's not helping the linebackers cover, and it's handicapping them because they need those reps to get better. but you do have a lot of teams that will utilize their true, linebackers, because to them, the development part is, I want to get you to be better. And for me, that's what I think 7-on-7 is critical in the development part, right? How do I get the quarterbacks? And if you utilize it correctly, you will get better. But
for 7-on-7 for me, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on.
No, I mean, it's just, again, it's how can I take kids again? And I say the same thing in Little League. There's always an argument about spring tackle, right? Yes. And for me, I look at it like, if you are a starter on your fall tackle team, no, you don't need to play spring ball. But if you played, if you were second string, if you didn't get any reps, spring ball should be for you, because you didn't get a whole lot of reps during the fall, so that you can get those important reps in the off season tackle wise. And then you can take those tools back to the fall to where you can now, push yourself and put yourself in a better position, to get playing time. So I think there is a huge need for spring tackle, but again, you have to use it in the right context. Same thing with 7-on-7, right? You have lineman competitions in high school where in the off season, a lot of high schools will compete against each other with their linemen. So they're getting important reps in the off season. So that's been going on forever. So the 7-on-7 part is important to help kids get better in their position. It's how do I develop in the off season? And I want it to be as close to live as possible without, of course, the injuries, without, getting hurt or tearing my body apart. Right. But how do I get, in the best reps? Just like, again, you're not going to get fast in practice. You're going to get fast at a track meet. You work out in practice, but you test it in a meet, right. See exactly if what I'm doing is working. So live competition, I'm going to know if, I'm getting better if I'm going against live competition. So I think 7-on-7 is very important. And people get it confused and say, well, you can't get scholarship offers from that. That's a bald-faced lie, because coaches want to see your athleticism. They want to see what you can do with shirts and shorts on. If that wasn't the case, why do they make you come to a camp?
Well, not only that, it's the small nuances that you get to see in 7-on-7 that you sometimes maybe miss in the heat of a game.
Absolutely.
Right? Especially as a wide receiver, right? Like sometimes, if you're going to run a double route concept, you might cheat a little bit closer to the hash, so you give yourself more room.
Can't do that.
In 7-on-7, it teaches you the spots on the field where you can cheat and the spots that you cannot, because if you cheat too much or your body leans one way or the other, it gives the dead giveaway of whether you're going to block or run a route. So I think 7-on-7 has come a long way. And the reason you're saying the coaches want to see that is because they can focus on those very minute details that get caught in the hogwash during a game sometimes.
And simple thing. You go to a college camp, one-on-ones. That's the same setting as 7-on-7. Now, your tackle fit, and I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying. 7-on-7 is the introduction and the caveat to your tackle film. What you do on your tackle film is what's ultimately going to earn you and afford you a scholarship. But the 7-on-7 film is supplemental to that, because it's just another way for coaches to evaluate your talent and see. And it's documented that kids have had non-committable offers from 7-on-7 before they even touch varsity. So that there's proof that it works.
Stillwater High School's got a kid like that right now that actually transferred from Enid High to sit behind Gage, gave up a varsity starting spot to come sit behind Gage Gundy at Stillwater in Stillwater, Oklahoma, because of that exact reason. Because 7-on-7 and everything gave him some keys to the kingdom, and for him to be able to blossom he knew he could get a little bit more following somebody like a Gage Gundy. Speaking of Gage Gundy, I know you're very familiar.
Absolutely.
I know you've seen Gage on the scene for quite some time now.
Love the kid. Sooner 7, those guys are my buddies. Man, I enjoy watching him throw the ball. I mean, he's played in my tournaments for the last couple of years now, and he's a joy to watch. You know, Sooner 7, those guys are doing a great job. You know, hats off to all 7-on-7 teams that are really about developing the kids, you know, and putting them in position and that's really what it's all about. Again, it's the development part, you know, trainers, recruiting services. If they're doing it for the right reason, I'm on board. I will, you know, kids call me all the time. Hey, coach, you know, which team should I go play for? You know, and I'll find out what area you live in. And I'll say, hey, these are great guys, you know, go talk to them, because I want it to continue to grow and I want kids to get better, because at the end of the day, you know, you got to have reps outside of, you know, what you're doing to get better. And it's, you know, it's a great way to do it. But I still say you got to run track too on top of that. So find a way to make both happen.
Well, you know, back in the day, you always heard like focus on a sport. It's not like that anymore. Coaches want to see well-versed athletes. They want to see athletes in multiple sports, not only because it does a lot from a physiological standpoint, like you were saying, you can carry some basketball over to some football and some track over to football as well. And, you know, to see that dichotomy kind of shift over time, it makes a massive difference nowadays. So for any parents out there with kids that are potentially wanting to go through the recruiting process, put them in multiple sports, because not only does it help, again, with the physiological side of things, it helps them stay in shape. That's something that people don't always take into consideration. That's why we had two-a-days for so long. And I do know that they're kind of gravitating a little bit more away from that. But the concept was, we're going to whip you into shape real quick, fast, and in a hurry to get you ready. Well, nowadays, if you have a multitude of sports that you can put in your tool bag, that's something that you're not going to have to worry about as much, which is, again, why coaches look at that type of thing.
Absolutely. And coaches want multi-sport athletes, because for one, you know, the thing about playing one sport year round is, and it's documented, the you know, the injuries, you know, because you're doing the same thing over and over and over. And just being able to do a different sport. And number one, you don't know which sport you're really going to be good at young. So why not do, you know, a myriad of sports? And then you look at basketball. Like, I've actually started look at your receivers that are good in basketball. Now you have the release where it's like a crossover, you know, where one hand is going between, you know, and you can take that all the way back to basketball. Go and pay attention to it. You know, guys are coming off the line, football, like they're playing basketball, you know, and it's really cool to see it. Same thing in basketball, the footwork, you know, soccer, all of those things go hand in hand from one sport to the next, to the next, to the next. And like you said, you're going to be in shape all the way through. You know, if we would go from football while my boys are playing football, my girls are playing, you know, basketball, and then volleyball, and then, you know, basketball for the boys, and then track, you know, and then softball and baseball or whatever. You know, we're trying to fit all of those things in, because early, you know, you just don't know what you're going to like. So try it all, whether it's karate.
No need to limit yourself.
Yeah, no need to. You know, for me growing up, I never did one sport. It was boxing was my first love, my very first sport. You know, I grew up in the same gym as the Spinks brothers, Leon Spinks, and they lived down the street from me. So that was, you know, my introduction to sports. Then it went from that to running track to football, you know, basketball. So for me, I went from literally, I did not want to be bored. So I went from one sport to the next. Nobody pushed me. that was something I wanted to do because I just wanted to play. Because if not outside, we're going to do every sport there is in a day, So it's just, it's fun.
I do know that some of the cerebral side of things and the mental toughness that Stephon Johnson Jr. exudes on a daily basis primarily comes from Mama Bear. All right, I get it. But I also know that you were a phenomenal athlete from the North St. Louis area coming up in the game. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the primary reason that you have got into the assistance and recruiting side of things is because a lot of us back then, we'd shoot for one specific thing. And once we got it, we thought that was it. And if we ever lost it, we didn't know what to do. Like me specifically, I didn't know what to do after, the potential of losing some things going into my sophomore year. So I just upped and joined the military because I didn't know any better. I didn't know what other recourse of action I could have if I couldn't play college ball. So kind of where in Stephon Johnson Jr.'s process did you gear everything more towards the not only recruiting side of things and preparing him, but getting others in the Houston area prepared for recruiting as well? Well,
going back to, again, me playing in high school, growing up in north side of St. Louis, the neighborhood I grew up in, I learned a whole lot about sports just being in the neighborhood, but there was really not a lot of focus on, playing sports collegiately. For me, it was, I wanted to play sports so that I wouldn't be in my neighborhood and put myself in a position to get killed. Basically, I grew up in, the height of the crack epidemic, when gang culture kind of took over in the country. So for me, it was an outlet, so as I got older and started seeing more kids attach themselves like this sport, that's all I am. I was like, whoa, we are so much more than a sport. I wanted to give kids what I didn't get, right? Not coach kids from where I was or coach kids how I was coached, and turned out I was really good at it, of making it make sense, right? So how do I reach you where you are and then help you grow? And understanding that for me, it wasn't about the accolades. It wasn't about, having to say, hey, I've helped 100 kids or however many. It's I want to help any kid that needs it, because that's what I looked for growing up, who was going to help me understand. I remember when I first started playing football, Pee-wee, I had to walk 10 blocks by myself to get to practice and walk back home. My parents were like, man, you want to play? All right, bye. We'll pay for it, but you find your way there, and this was as a kid, so I'm trying to feel my way through it, so it's like, the one thing I felt I can give back to my kids and any kid around, for me, it was, what sense does it make for me to only focus on helping my kid when they got to live in a world with others? So if I can help the kids around you, I'm helping make their world, which in turn becomes your world, better as well. So always try to give, what you can to the world, and good things will come back. So I grew up in a world of negativity. So I always vowed to where, as an adult, I want to give positive things to the world, because I grew up around so much negativity. So, whatever I can do positive to help anybody around me, I'm good with that.
So the reason I'm kind of segueing to tie this stuff together, my last couple episodes, I've been emphasizing the fact that, times have changed. And as a fan base, people still have this misconception that fans have absolutely zero bearing in not only recruiting, but re-recruiting kids, correct? And the reason that I wanted to segue off of that was because for all fans out there, it is imperative that you speak positivity in existence, but also to be accurate in what you do put out there. Because not only do kids listen, but there's several people out there, much like Stephon, that do have a hand in multiple kids and multiple recruiting efforts that go to multiple different schools. So everybody needs to do their part, and saying things that are unnecessary, inaccurate, and constantly negative, it does come back to bite you if you don't do it the right way. So off of that, I know you have a pretty heavy hand in a lot of the recruits that Oklahoma State University is currently potentially looking at, but both for this coming up class as well as 24, 25, 26 classes. How fun was the atmosphere for West Virginia game? How many people loved coming to Boone Pickens Stadium to get soaking wet?
Man, listen, it was not fun. Number one, it rained the entire time. That was no fun at all. And it was cold. The kids, however, enjoyed it because it was a new experience. And for me, I'm really particular in how to order things, because just kind of going through this stuff, a lot of things work in the recruiting world, but I think if you put things in perspective and you kind of look at roadmaps, right? Like a GPS, you can kind of see early, right? If you're 7th, 8th grade and you're not 6'2", 6'3", there is always different things that you can look at to kind of help you say, okay, this is the direction I want to go in, but let me put myself in a position where I am right now, that'll help me later. But the kids, man, really, really enjoyed the game. They didn't even mind, being wet, because the experience was, this is something that is tangible now, because I see, I see the kids that are in front of me. And here's the thing about going back to what you said, and what people need to realize. If you had 10,000 people show up to your job and they watched you work all day long and went on social media and say, I don't like the way that joker hold his pen, I don't like the way he typed. You could type a whole lot better than that. I type like this. Why don't you type like that? And just, would you want to deal with that as an adult every single day? And at the end of the day, these are kids. They're mentally that are growing, right? You're already in a combative situation with the game that is a violent game, right? So now they're taught, turn up. They're taught to turn up. Let's be violent. But then away from that, right? How do you turn that down? So we're fueling these kids' anger every single day if we're pushing negative, because they're going to see that and they say, well, I either got to play harder or I got to do. And you're talking about minds that are still developing, right? And what tools do they actually have to filter those messages to where they really understand that the people that are saying it is only saying it for whatever reason, right? So yes, I agree. People need to think a lot more when it comes to how they handle what they say about these young men or young ladies. That just because you have a platform to speak freely doesn't mean that the consequences from what you say isn't going to be, thought of on a deeper level. That words hurt, and they hurt people in different ways. And you can have a hand in destroying someone's mentality. And of course, you want to say, be tough. But come on, put yourself in that situation and see,
Yeah, no, I think, sometimes the lines get blurred between holding somebody accountable and being unnecessarily negative, right? I think, the two don't have to be mutually exclusive by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm very glad that you got to that. So I can tell you, a lot of people are very, very curious. Could you give us a little breakdown on why Boogie went from his dream school in Oregon to God's country, Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So parents, this is, something that's very important. Every situation is different in recruiting, but the one thing that doesn't change, I don't believe, is relationships. Coaches spend weeks and weeks and weeks and months, talking to kids and developing relationships from different schools. That goes a long way. It's proof. If you've played college ball or you played a sport dealing with it, you understand exactly what I'm saying. So, as fate would have it, Mario Cristobal and B-Mac were instrumental in recruiting him to Oregon. And that was, again, his dream school. 3 days before early signing, Mario took the opportunity to go coach back at home at the University of Miami, right? So now the guys that spent 8 months, having a relationship and building a rapport, with him, were gone. So me understanding the business side of it, I said, okay, wait, we're not going to sign because we got to wait and see who that staff is going to be, what it's going to look like. We were under the impression that B-Mac was a front runner, which had he got the job, he offered him. So he definitely would have stayed. Right.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So we had to wait, and waited patiently to see what would come next. Right. And respectfully, when Dan Lanning got the job, we knew him coming out of Georgia. Georgia hadn't recruited, Boogie. So it was kind of like, okay, what's that relationship going to look like? Right. And again, you want to put yourself in a good situation. It's just like getting a job, right? A lot of people will get into the workforce and it ain't what you know is who you know that can give you a leg up in the workforce, right? So those relationships get you into a job where you're going to do what? Have an advantage, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, this is no different. No different. If it can all be worked out the way that it's supposed to, right? So the new crew that came in hadn't recruited him, where they were. So common sense says probably not going to like him. And I can respect that. I'm okay with that, right? Because again,
it's business. It's
business. And we get it, So they hadn't recruited him and the communication was not a whole lot. You know what I'm saying? It was a text here, text there, right. So it was like, okay, you know what? That's very far to go, knowing that you're walking into a disadvantaged situation. Now, it's different, if Cristobal and B-Mac were still there. Everything would be different, you know what I'm saying? Because those phone calls were made, 2 or 3 times a week. They checked on them, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it was more of a, not putting him in a situation where he would be at a disadvantage because those guys didn't have a relationship with him and he wouldn't, have an opportunity to really, showcase himself. Right. And you had, schools that were still in communication, that were like, hey, if anything changes, hey, we're here, just so. And just turns out Oklahoma State, was one of those schools that say, hey, if you need us, we're here. We like your film. We like, what you do. So those conversations, and it just became the best fit out of what was given, the consistency with the coaching staff, the fact that, wide receivers from there, a lot of them move on to go to the NFL. And that's his aspiration, whether it happens or not is up to, what he does on and off the field, and if it happens, but putting himself in a position, to give him an advantage for that to happen. Those things, it's a part of the business, So the door was open the moment Cristobal left. Gotcha. And we had to take a step back and look at, again, what was best for him.
Man, that's and just like we try to have the tie-ins for the parent side of recruiting. I think it's vitally important that the idea of this relationships are more important than anything, because I think all fans, right, no matter how deep your fandom, a lot of people look at something at face value and they say, well, why? How could he go to a Tulsa over Oklahoma State? Like we do it all the time, right? And I think getting that behind the scenes from you is very, very important. And thank you very much. We're all greatly appreciative, everybody in Cowboy Nation, that it came the way it did, and you went from the neon highlighter green O to the right O, right? We're greatly appreciative, because you don't see a lot of freshmen wide receivers play very often in Oklahoma State, right? And you can go back to Rashawn Woods, Des Bryant, Justin Blackman, Tylen Wallace, James Washington, Tyron Johnson. The list goes on and on and on. And being able to play at Oklahoma State University as a freshman wide receiver is a big deal. And then on top of it, to be able to start, it's a big deal. And then on top of that, to be able to start and then also be a key contributor in some of the success of the passing game, it just goes to show how you can put in the time. And if it's reciprocated the right way, it can come down to having success immediately because of preparation. If you're prepared, you're prepared. That'll never change. So before we skedaddle on out of here, I do want to cover briefly. Do you have anything that you want to tell the people that you have coming down the pipelines, as well as where they can potentially reach you at, sir?
Well, yes. Coast to Coast TC on Twitter, Coast to Coast on Instagram. And if you guys are on Facebook, SD Johnson. I have Flex Zone 101, which is for 4th grade through 9th grade, one-on-one competition that is completely different from any competition around the country. And again, it's about development. It's about giving kids an extra opportunity from a great perspective of trying to get them to understand early what it's going to look like when they go to a college campus and compete. So those are the things, and we're actually looking at kids for who they are. Size has absolutely nothing to do with it. Your name, who coaches you, none of that stuff matters to me, because again, the reason why the kids around me are successful in everything that they do is, we talk about that every play I compete mentality, compete for the sake of competition. I don't think a lot of kids do that now. So it's a lot easier to be successful if you're just competing and doing it the right way. Tomorrow, Fishbowl Studios Radio on Facebook, 11 to 12. I'll be co-hosting a talk show with On the Mark, Mark Henry. You can find him On the Mark Show on Twitter. Very positive, very informative show. And we have some 7-on-7 stuff coming up. So stay in touch with Cody. Follow me on Twitter. All of those things, we'll be posting every single day. And great thing, consultation company is coming within the next week. A lot of great things. So I don't want to put a whole lot out there until they jump off. Just you guys, again, follow Cody, because he tags me. I tag him. Follow me. Follow Mark Henry. Follow Scott Rapp. It's really all about teaching and empowering a lot of people early of what to do to put themselves in a position to be seen. Not everybody is going to get a D1 or Power 5 scholarship. But there are opportunities out there to continue your sport at the next level. It's just about knowing how to find it and pushing yourself very early and putting yourself in a position to get what's coming to you. So if you believe it, you got to start doing the work very early. And what's for you is for you.
I love it. Well, Stephon, it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show, sir. I'm glad that you were able to kind of, dive into some of the things that make Boogie such an integral part of the wide receiver core moving forward. Thank you for bringing him up the right way. I'm sure that Mama Boogie had a hand in that too. So hats off to her as well. And one last thing. There's some people in Cowboy Nation that are a little stressed out about only having 11 commits right now in recruiting. As you've seen lately, we have a lot of stuff coming in the pipeline for recruiting. So everybody just relax a little bit. We got some super seniors coming. The class is coming together very nicely. But, sir, can you please give us one name that maybe we should all do a little bit of extra research on?
Whew.
Yeah.
Man, you want me to let the cat out the bag?
Oh, don't go for the cat, but just go for the mouse behind it. Yeah, this is curveball. This is curveball season, baby.
Man, you caught me off guard on that one. Actually, you talking about kids that are coming from high school or portal?
Anybody to give that salivating of the mouth sensation for all of Cowboy Nation. Who is somebody that's maybe under the radar that we need to know?
I would say offensive line. There is Anthony Bates Jr. out of North Shore, Sea King area, 6'3", 270 center. I think he would be a great part of Oklahoma State. I know for a fact that they're looking at him. Now, scholarship player, that remains to be seen as far as, what. But this kid has won a state championship with North Shore, has been instrumental in helping Sea King get a lot of their wins. I think he could potentially be a great pickup. And there are a lot of kids right now that are on the radar for Oklahoma State that I think really, let me pull up some names right now.
Well, we do need help on the O-line. Now, honest to God, it's true.
Absolutely.
Right? That's really that's the only glaring need that we have. And it's not that we don't have talent. It's that we lack the depth behind the
that's talent. It. That's to me is something that is very important. So I'm spending a lot of extra time looking at as many linemen around the country as possible. And the one thing that's a benefit to me being able to do what I do, the 7-on-7 and lineman competitions, I can, touch guys that have these guys all over the country and and really help, the recruiting staff say, okay, let's identify, does this kid fit the Cowboy culture? Because again, helping schools all over the country, you have to know. Now, this is what parents need to understand: systems, right? The Cowboy culture is all in all a system, right? And does that kid fit? And this goes back to high school football. A lot of people think just because there is a school on the corner with a football field that my kid can go play. But if your kid doesn't fit that system, right, he probably won't have the advantage that's afforded to other kids. And then you can take that kid, remove him, plug him into a different system that's suited for him, and he'll excel.
Well, and the best part about O-line is the largest amount of NFL players that are in the NFL that didn't get recruited is the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be a position that people oftentimes don't flourish until college. So, and Oklahoma State does have a very rich history on the PWO market because of exactly what you brought up, which is exactly what your son does embody, which is that cowboy culture. The grab your lunch pail, we're going to go to work and we're going to go to war mentality. You don't see that as much anymore. So it's a breath of fresh air. So I thank you very much.
And that goes back to what kind of like what I started my apparel company. Name is Epic, right? And that stands for every play I compete, because in my training mantra, it's, we want to put ourselves in a position where we compete at everything we do and understand that that's how you set yourself up for greatness. And I'm not talking about sports, greatness in life, because life is all about how you compete at whatever you do. If you want to be great on your job, guess what? You're competing against the person that's a manager. So when they move up, they're looking at you like, hey, this guy's a great competitor.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's built for the grind. Let's move him up. So it's all about competition and doing things the right way. And it's about outworking yesterday, and how do we do that? There's a kid, Hudson Devins, definitely should look at him. I think he just got a PWO for Oklahoma State. Man, I can go on all day as far as, now I will say you have a lot of kids kind of on the fence right now. And rightly so, because wins help kids make a decision. Losses make them pause, right?
Yep.
Everybody wants to be a part of a winning program. So I don't really want to go on a line and say, that I'm convinced, this kid is gonna, because again, you have to look at big picture, right? And I think kids have to look and understand that the trajectory of the program, even high schools have a down year, for whatever reason, the wheels fall off and, you got to right the ship, but then look at the history, right? And then look at the people that are in place. If you don't see a whole lot of change, then it's just, you got injuries, you got this, you got that. So now it's, what's going to benefit me? And I think a lot of times kids make, again, business decisions based off of emotions, based off of, what they're losing right now. Does that mean they're going to lose next year? Or, and very few people really look at it and say, do I fit this system? Do I even know what the cowboy culture is? Right. Am I a part of, that? Am I the type of player, and I stress that to parents all the time. You got to know where you fit in a system in order for you to say, okay, this is going to benefit me and benefit them, because it has to be a two-way street.
Yes, it does.
It can't be just about what you want, and that's something that I stress to my son all the time. You can't make, unfair expectations when you're not giving above and beyond. You have to be willing to give more than what's being asked in order to put yourself in position to win anything, because again, this is not a sport where it's about one individual. It's a collective. And how do you fit in being an individual where you can help the collective?
Absolutely. Wow. Well, I think that about covers everything that we planned on hitting, boss man.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the opportunity and looking forward to a whole lot more, Cody.
Yes.
Can I let that out? All right. So Cody is going to be instrumental in helping change the face of media in 7-on-7. And he's going to come on board and help me figure out a way to help young athletes in a different, fresh perspective, pursue everything on the media side and give them an added advantage. And a lot of that should be just a new look at, projecting where a kid is right now and potentially, where it could be. Because again, you got to dream. If you want to play this sport, wherever you are right now, you're dreaming of where I'm going to be next, and so on and so forth. So just to have the ability to have more people, look at you and say, hey, this is, where you could end up, whether it's right or wrong, it's still good to know those things, because to know where you're headed is always good to say, okay, this is my weakness. Let me turn that into a strength. So we want to continue to push the boundaries on what we can give, young athletes as far as the media and marketing side, because that's a very instrumental part of what this football thing is. At the end of the day, high level football, if you're playing college ball, it's about selling tickets. At the end of the day, I don't care what nobody say. If your team can't sell tickets, they're not going to be good for very long, period. So, just learning those things early and understanding what you can bring to the table. Your value is based on what you can give your team to help them win. Absolutely. Nothing else. Not what the team can give you. Your value is based on what you can give the coaching staff, your team, to help put them in a position to win day to day. So that means you have to be good every single day. So we just want to be able to spotlight and help those kids day to day.
I'm excited, man. I'm very, very, very excited.
Appreciate it, man. I needed you.
To be a part. And everything's going to continue to get bigger. It's going to continue to get better. I would say I'm going to get bolder, but I think that's something I've already kind of crossed off the list. This thing right here, it's got a muzzle. I just don't use it very often.
Hey, man, it is what it is. It is what it is. I appreciate the opportunity, man. I'm looking forward to a lot more.
Absolutely. Oh, well, again, thank you for you and Mama Bear Boogie for allowing Stephon Johnson Jr. to bless all of us with what he's able to do in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The future looks very good. If I can say one thing about this season, right? It didn't go how anybody thought it was going to, right? But you got to look at the positive. And the biggest positive is the freshman class that got to see some playing time this season are going to be the catalyst for even more success for all of Oklahoma State University football fans.
They're going to be hungry.
Stay tuned. This is going to get good. The future is more bright right now than it has ever been at any point in time in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So again, thank you, sir. Here's the thing to that, Cody. Here's the thing to that. I think people don't really understand, and then this is my last one. Adversity builds character. Just by winning does not always say that you're good. It's how do you come back from failure? That to me shows a true testament of longevity, a true testament of, now, yes, it stung. Yes, it's frustrating, but that's life. Anything that we want, that's great. You got to struggle for it. Show me somebody that's great that didn't have, a losing season or seasons, in anything, so this is all a part of growth. Now it's all about how do you go back to the lab? How do you get better? How do you learn from, this and put it in your toolbox and come back and say, I didn't like that feeling. Let me play even harder next year, and preparation. Part of preparation is consistency, right? And as we talked about earlier, fit. I have a trivia question for you. See, I'm throwing you more curveballs than you saw coming. Do you know how many losing seasons we've had in Mike Gundy's tenure in Stillwater, Oklahoma?
Man, losing seasons. I would say 3.
One. 2005.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, being one of the top 10 winningest programs in the last 10 to 12 years, it's very, very beneficial, especially when you're talking about that consistency and the relationships that you do look for that are more important than simply going somewhere because of the sticker on the helmet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, a lot of people get caught up in, you know, commit to the school and all of that. Yeah. You know, we can have a whole long conversation on that. You know, long conversation on that. If you're going for education, then yes, commit to the school. But if you're talking about a sport, it's a whole lot of layers tied in that.
And you, sir, are integral in helping young athletes sift through the layers. So thank you for what you do. Hopefully more people that are coming up in this industry do a lot like what you're trying to accomplish and what you have been accomplishing, because it's not just about getting kids prepared to play the game. Nowadays, it's more about getting kids prepared for what happens once you get to the game and after the game. So again, thank you for what you do. Continue the good fight. I cannot wait to see some of the new business plans that you have coming down the pipeline. I can't wait to be a part of the new media side that we're going to put together for some of the 7-on-7 stuff. So, yeah, unless you got anything else, brother, man, I've got you had your lighting ready. My producer just brought me some hot cocoa. So
I will talk you guys to death, man.
All righty, brother.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time. Again, it's been a massive, massive honor. And I can't wait to see what else we have coming down the pipeline. And I cannot wait to see what your son does in this bowl game, just because people don't realize whether it's the toilet.com bowl or the Fiesta Bowl. A bowl game does nothing but get players prepared for spring, and it really gives them an extra spring. So you oftentimes see freshmen turn into sophomores just because of the extra bowl work. So for all the fans out there that aren't happy with whatever bowl we end up with, nobody in that locker room is going to be super excited that we didn't go to a New York Six Bowl like we should have, coming into the season, right? But you also don't plan for 133,000 injuries. You also don't plan to have things snowball, and you have this accumulative effect. Nowadays, you can't get by with one quarterback. It's just not possible. You have to have multiple quarterbacks. And the future with Garrett Rangel and Gunnar Gundy and Zane Flores and this wide receiver core, I mean, do we really need a lineman? Do we really?
Yes. Yes. You can always use some.
It was tongue in cheek. I knew you were going to correct me.
Yes. We need some more linemen.
Well,
no, man, I appreciate you. And I'm actually looking forward to, seeing what he does in the future as well. He's young and still, unfolding and still maturing. And at the end of the day, this is his first year away from home, first year trying to figure out, who he is and get his classes in order and, balance all of that stuff. And we don't make excuses, whatever he does, good, bad, we own it and keep moving, because that's a part of life,
Well, have him hit me up and, we'll do some high point drills, and then he'll be well on his way to the NFL.
Let's do it. I got you.
All right, brother, man. All right. Well, for all of you out there, I greatly, greatly appreciate your time, and I greatly appreciate all that you were able to give us.
Thank you, guys.
For everybody, guys, it is very, very important that we as a fan base, again, do things that are not only conducive of what's best for the university, but keep these young men in mind, because if we're not giving accurate information, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, the young men a disservice, and the university a disservice. So I want to thank you all again for stopping by and making this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Until tomorrow, I love you all. God bless. Go Pokes.
Go Pokes. Let's do it.